Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 1:30 p.m. to 2 p.m. session of the 2024 Open Simulator Community Conference. In this session, we're pleased to introduce the presentation, History in Virtual Worlds, Conquest and Tragedy. Our speaker is Andrew Wheelock, Spiff, Whitfield. Spiff has 17 years in virtual worlds education with the Virtual Pioneers and Islands of Enlightenment. Among his accomplishments are the roles of educator in elementary education, technology integrator, now technology director. Please check out the website found at conference.opensimulator.org for speaker bio, details of sessions, and the full schedule of events. The session is being live streamed and recorded, so if you have questions or comments during the session, you may send tweets to OpenSimCC with the hashtag OSCC24. Welcome, everyone, and let's begin the session.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Andrew Wheelock in real world, and my most common name here and in Second Life for those Second Lifers is Spiff Whitfield. And as the speaker, or as my introduction mentioned, I have been in virtual worlds for 17 years. In OpenSim, I've been doing work probably 15 years in OpenSim work for elementary students. So I want to the title of my presentation is, History in Virtual Worlds, Conquest and Tragedy. And I think that illustrates the work that I've done in virtual worlds, and I don't want to leave the session as tragedy. I want to hopefully give people maybe some hopes, and I'm going to offer out an opportunity for some collaboration if people are so daring that are listening. So let me just tell you some of the work that I've done, and I think had pretty good success with it, and also some of the work I've done in Second Life as well. And then also to just really outline some of the, challenges that happen as well. So first of all, I'll give you just a little bit of my background. I was an elementary teacher for 13 years. And one of my passions in teaching was history. And I, love teaching my students history because I loved history. And I remember the moment that I discovered that I loved history was in 7th grade when our teacher, and again, I'm going way back, I'm 58 years old. So I'm an old dog, but as a youngster in 7th grade, I remember our teacher brought in the movie projector and showed The Red Badge of Courage with Audie Murphy. And that was the moment that I just loved history. And it just sparked a curiosity in me, and seeing the visual of that battlefield scenes, even when it was black and white and Audie Murphy back in those days, that just sparked my imagination and curiosity into history. And I've been hooked ever since. And so when I became an elementary teacher, I really wanted to share that passion. And I believed that the passion was there for history. But when I went to share that with my students, again, this is late 90s, early 2000s, the kids really weren't interested in history. And I think the best way at that time was to grip their attention was certainly through movies. There's not a ton of great movies for elementary school that really latch onto history. And then the textbooks were very dry. Again, we're still kind of using textbooks. Technology was just at its infancy. The web was still in its infancy. And so we were mostly, at that particular time, it was mostly, one way. It was students absorbing content rather than, they're having an interaction with history. So fast forward a few years, when I got my job as a tech integrator, I worked for 17 years as an integrator, and basically we would go to different districts and do technology integration workshops with teachers. So it was a really dynamic and fun job. And so my boss at the time said, hey, listen, there's this virtual world stuff coming out. Why don't you check out Second Life? and see what you think. And, most of my colleagues at the time, yawned and moved on. And even I was a little skeptical when I first started and thought, come on, like a video game, is this where we want to, take kids and education? And when I got into Second Life, I immediately thought, wow, this would be the magic to capture kids' attention about history specifically. And, when I first came into Second Life, there were a lot of builds, and one of them was the Holocaust Museum. And let me just put in my first website here. I'll click on the URL. See if that'll show up. So that really sparked my attention, and we got some server space. We downloaded OpenSim, and we created a virtual world. We created our own OpenSim virtual world and the first project I wanted to do, because seeing the Holocaust Museum in Second Life was, wow, this would be great for teaching kids about the diary of Anne Frank, or the diary of a young girl, Anne Frank. And because when I read that book, again, that was also in 7th grade, I couldn't imagine how you could hide in what the annex looked like just from reading the book. I mean, the book was so powerful, and yet I couldn't figure out, like, what did that annex look like? So I thought this would be the perfect starting point, is to get kids to see what was life in the annex life by giving them a virtual experience. And so that was the first thing we did. I had some great people helping me. For those of you in Second Life, you probably know Serena Off Course, who's an amazing person. She did so much of the building and help. And we had collaboration all the way around, including from the Holocaust Museum, from the Anne Frank House. I mean, we had some really great people. PBS helped. So it was a really wonderful experience. We put it into, we basically recreated the building and the streets of Amsterdam circa 1942, and gave kids an amazing experience. And you can see behind me on the slides. Yeah, hey, Serena. You can see a little bit of what that project was like. And hopefully on the website, you can see it as well. I put a lot of pictures in there, but you can see first in the top left-hand corner, there's a picture of Anne's desk in her room that we recreated. And then there's at the end of it, the kids create a reflection candle. You can see all the candles on there's a kind of a shelf there, and there's a waterfall behind it. So kind of like if you've ever been to the real world Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., it's an unbelievable experience. And the last thing you do as you go through that museum is come to a reflection area and light a candle. So with that in mind, that's what the students did. And then within the candle, they created a reflection. And that's what, thanks, Beth. And it really was. And that's what really gave us a hint that this was powerful, because we were worried about this particular subject. While we wanted it to be engaging and fun for the kids, we also didn't want it to be, it's a game rather than the Holocaust was real, and the Holocaust, had real horrific implications. So we wanted to, play that balance. But the essays were the thing that really told us that we hit that sweet spot in the balance of making it engaging, but also make it powerful learning from that experience. So the kids wrote really good essays, and it was just really, to me, showed that we had a success, and that and the kids, if you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see they made their own display about the Holocaust. And that, they had some theme of the Holocaust they had to do. And at first they were just creating basically Google Slides presentations and bringing them in. But over time, then they went and they were we had students creating tanks. They were creating, exhibits. It was just awesome. And it was, again, if we think of the Conquest versus tragedy. This was our conquest. We conquered the idea of creating a really immersive experience that gave kids a powerful experience that let them be a curator, that let them share their learning, but also gave them a perspective of the book. Again, the book is really the important piece. They have to read the book and then have the experience of being in the house. And I did think it gave them that whole idea of being in a cramped space for, I believe they were in there for two years, which was an incredible success story. But so that was my first experience. So from learning about Second Life in that Holocaust museum, we did this, and I'll be honest, there were a lot of bumps along the way. We got a grant for this. That was huge. There was a lot of learning. Again, my tech guys and me, like, we'd never done this before. We never put this on a server. We didn't know how to run. For a longest time, we were getting these just crashes, like kids would come in 5 minutes later, everybody'd crash. And we couldn't figure it out until we figured out it was voice. We had enabled voice, even though it wasn't working, but that was pulling bandwidth away and causing these crashes. So once we kind of disabled the voice piece, then everything worked fine. And we really had rarely ever, significant crashes, but it took us so long to figure it out. But it was a community that helped us figure it out. Back when Google had, what was their kind of community thing they had where you could kind of join a community and answer questions. They got rid of it. Google, I want to say Plus communities or something like that. Anyways, so that they were part of the solution for helping us. So that was definitely a positive, a conquest. The grant was super helpful because it not only gave us money for my time, the IT guys' time, but it gave the districts technology. So we were able to get schools to sign on to this because they got laptops, they got extra things they needed to power the program. And so a lot of schools were like, wow, this is great. We get free technology. So that was year one of it. Again, successful. Let me bounce to year two. I know I've got limited time, so I'm going to try and stick to my program here. So year two was what was known as the Heir of the King project. So we thought, like, okay, the Anne Frank piece is up and running. Let's try a medieval sim. So this one, I had a great teacher and a colleague who's still a really close friend of mine, Mary Howard. She's a middle school teacher. She came on board. She does a medieval unit where there's sixth graders. And so we thought, let's try and do a medieval unit. And this one was, again, it was a lot of work, but with her curriculum pieces and her creativity, and my ability to kind of leverage, my friends and builders and to build our own, we created a kind of a gamified learning experience where the kids leveled up. So they started off as kind of a serf in a medieval world. And then it was all built around an Arthurian legend. And there's videos within the website I shared of all of our starter stuff and some of the building tutorials that we created. And this was, so dynamic, so fun. And it really, to me, it got an extra teacher involved, and it just really put so much fun stuff together for us. And then, I just can't say enough about the collaborative pieces that went into it and all of the work that we did. And again, we tied both a literary piece in the Arthurian legend kind of thing, as well as some real history. And we also got our local college here in Buffalo State University. We got their acting department and had some of their kids play the roles of some of the characters that the kids would meet. And they did some recordings and videos, and that was fun. So they got to, like, again, it was almost like Clue. They had to interview 4 different people. And of course, we videotaped the interviews with them in character. And so the students kind of tried to figure out who was the rightful heir based on, who they talked to. But the kids totally got into it. You know, they were acting majors, so they did the voices and everything, and we had just such a fun experience with that. But again, so many ways to collaborate and engage. So that was year 2. And then year 3, we put on a whole different spin, which was architecture. And this one was really fun. I live near Buffalo, so the Frank Lloyd Wright, or the Darwin Martin House is here, which is a Frank Lloyd Wright house. Amazing history. If you're ever in Buffalo, definitely check it out. It's an incredible house. They've rebuilt it. It actually, believe it or not, it laid empty for a long time and was, being deteriorated by the elements. Some people bought some of the properties and ruined some of the original design. So this organization, the Darwin Martin House, and the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation did this amazing, rebuild and just getting people to care about this building again. And it's in its full glory now, completely restored to the way it was when Darwin Martin, who got rich from, he's a rags to riches story, actually kind of rags to riches to rags story, because he started out very poor, but he worked for this soap company and became wealthy. He just moved up the ladder through just hard work and his own smarts. And then he became he became part of the administrative team and became a millionaire, and hired Frank Lloyd Wright, who was just starting his career, and had him build this home. And you can see the Darwin Martin House as a picture down below. But that was our next frame, because throughout this process, we saw the passion for kids to want to build. Like even at the start, when we did the Anne Frank project, our biggest challenge was to stop kids from building, like within the streets of Amsterdam. And it was one of those kind of plus minus problems, right? Because
Spiff,
yes.
Spiff, I
Yes.
think I've been told that the time is up.
Oh, snap. Okay. All right. Let me wrap things up and just
Sure.
offer a quick little promotion. So I'm also part of a group in Second Life called the Virtual Pioneers. I'll put the website in there. I thought I had till the top of the hour, so sorry about that, everybody. But we have an event next weekend if you'd like to join us. And we're also looking for some new people that would like to be a part of that. So to kind of just to wrap this up, the tragedy of it is the grant dried up. A lot of the schools didn't stick with it. So Chromebooks, of course, became all the rage in schools because they were cheap. And so it's been a real challenge. We're down to just one school that's using the projects, and it's been a real challenge. And that's kind of the tragedy of it. There's such power to this, but because of the difficulty of just our technology age, schools just wanting to use Chromebooks. Again, I don't blame the schools. It's a challenge.
I hope that people will be able to speak to you perhaps after.
Absolutely.
To learn more.
I'd be happy to chat. So yes.
Good. So thank you, Spiff, for an informative and interesting presentation.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
As a reminder to our audience, you will want to check out conference.opensimulator.org to see what's coming up on the conference schedule. You won't want to miss our next session, which will begin at 2 p.m. in this keynote region, and is entitled Utilizing the Metaverse for Serious Learning. Also, we encourage you to visit the OSCC24 Poster Expo in the OSCC Expo 3 region to find accompanying information on presentations, and explore the hypergrid resources in OSCC Expo 2 region, along with sponsor and crowdfunder booths located throughout all of the OSCC Expo regions. Thank you again to our speakers and the audience.